When we start in the photography world, everything is just magical. Every trick, every discovery, every new thing that you learn is just so amazing. And as you develop your skills, especially when it comes to lighting, you realize that things don't have to be super complex to be great. Less is more. You can create great images with fairly simple setups. So that's why today I'm gonna show you how to create 4 different pictures with just one light. Yes, sir, just one. But before diving into it, please consider subscribing to the channel so you can keep growing and I can keep making great videos for you. Please. Let's get back to the video. We're going to keep the settings as constant as possible. So for example, we're gonna use the same lens for all 4 images. Which lens? The nifty 50, the 50mm lens. I know, it's super used and it's super common. So that's the reason why we're keeping it simple. Any kind of flash that you have will work. The modifier for the light will also be constant. We're gonna use the same one. In my case, I'm gonna be using the 5-foot umbrella with a white interior and the external diffuser. That means that the light will be soft and I'm totally fine with it. If you don't have an umbrella, don't worry. Let's say you have an octabox in there. Cool, that'll work as well. The thing is that there's octas out there that have double diffusion. They have an interior diffusion and they have an external diffusion. So in my case, I will be only using the external diffusion, okay? Shutter speed, 125th. Why? Because some cameras have like a little bit faster sync speed, some others don't. So if you have an old camera, this will work, 125th. Amazing. I'm not going to be using anything fancy like high-speed sync or anything like that. No, again, simple, 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 so you guys can recreate it. ISO 400 because I don't want like much grain, although modern cameras are amazing in low light, all that kind of stuff. I don't care. And also because I don't want to use the flashes full power. I want to be able to have wiggle room. So, you know, this will help me. And F11 for all 4 images. I want them sharp from back to front. I don't mind that. Of course, when you're recreating these images, if you want, you can start varying stuff. So with all those details out of the equation, we can now focus on the posing, the light direction, the position of the lights, and the power of the flashes. So the way this is gonna work is very simple. The first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you the lighting diagram that I created for each of the images, and then I'm gonna guide you step by step through my thought process so you can understand what I was thinking when I was creating these images. So let's start creating the first image. This one is a traditional portrait. So if you're a beginner, you're gonna learn this really quick because it's everywhere, but it's still very cool and very artistic. This is the kind of lighting that we call the Rembrandt. So why do we call this one a Rembrandt? So when you see the paintings of Rembrandt, you will notice this kind of lighting that we're recreating here. Actually, now that I think about it, it's kind of like the light that I have right here. You see, it's very characteristic because it has like this little triangle between the shadows, especially in the shadow side or in the far side, however you want to call it. So that is the most characteristic thing. In his paintings, the lighting was coming from a window, and usually the window was like high and all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty cool. It's extremely artistic. Look at all those paintings. Give yourself the gift to go to a museum and you'll notice this kind of lighting. I also like to call it the Marchelier. Why the Marchelier? Oh, so French. The Marchelier. That's because of my photographic hero, Patrick the Marchelier. I love his photography. It's so soft. It is so beautiful. It is just so iconic. He used to have the octa, and it was very close. It was high. It was in an angle that would resemble this kind of paintings. It was soft light, you know, really beautiful fall off, as we like to call it. It was very beautiful and it is very pleasing, especially in fashion and beauty. That's the reason why I personally like to explain it as such. So as you can see in the picture that we created for this video, it tries to resemble that, trying to have the same characteristics of these guys. From then, we go to our second image. This one is not as safe as the first one. That's what I would start saying. It kind of follows the painting theme that we started with. Let me just like set this up, okay? If we look at the royal portraits or the portraits of very important people, the old royal portraits, you'll notice that the subject was always sideways. And then with that, the lighting is also very peculiar. And I think they were sideways just to show that they were a little bit distance from the general population, you know, that they were royals. They're different, they're in another position technically and literally speaking, and that's exactly what we're gonna do here. We're gonna go a little bit more dramatic than we did with the first one. The light will be in front of our subject, but as we're talking about, the subject is not in front of the camera, is sideways. So that's what's going to create a little different fall off as we were talking before. So the transition from light to shadow is actually going to be noticeable, more noticeable to the front of the camera. So this is something that is really cool because it kind of like portrays that inner strength that our character, you know, whoever's in front of our lens has. It's not our typical headshot. It's not our typical portrait. And that is actually, you know, it's different. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to work with that. From here, so we go into our third image, and how do you do it? Now that I think about it, like there's people that do it like this, there's people that do it like that. I know there's the whole thing between Canadians and Americans, and then I do it like this, and this is because I played basketball all of my life, so I just got used to, you know, like the referees used to do it. But anyway, so we got distracted here. So this kind of lighting is the one that I casually called the light shower or the light rain, whatever, you know, is just a way for me to describe it. I'm just lighting from above, totally perpendicular. It's just like being under a shower head. So since we have a big modifier, which is the 5-foot umbrella, the light is going to be very even and soft. I actually like this kind of lighting and I use it as a starting point. Just be mindful of the shadows that are going to be created on your subject. If that's what your client wants, or if that's what you are creating and exactly what you want, then fine. Otherwise, just be mindful. So the light is completely over our subject, and that gives you a lot of control, you know, when it comes to the shadows. If you want to modify that, you only have to ask your subject to walk backwards or walk forward, and it will just completely change the way it falls on them. So try it out. And finally, we got to our fourth and last image. So what are we going to do for this last one? I mean, we have 3 really good and different lighting setups. So how about we create a silhouette? We've been playing with moving the light different sides of our subject, putting the light above, putting the light, you know, in front of our subject, but the subject being, you know, sideways. So this is really interesting because usually we tend to start by lighting the background and then we light our subject and all that kind of stuff. We're placing the light directly behind our subject in a sandwich between the light and the lens. That is pretty cool. We have to be careful though, because with the power, if it's too high, then it's gonna spill all over and we're gonna create like some kind of bloom in the lens that is not gonna look so cool. So it has to be the kind of power that is enough to light our subject, make the background look like it's completely white, but our subject will be a perfect silhouette. What I like about this setup is that it lets us be playful. The silhouette can be anything. What I just did was that I used a basketball hat to try to add another element so it was just distinguishable, so we could sculpt with the light. And actually, if we had gone and we had used the 7-foot umbrella, maybe I could have done a full body silhouette. You see, that's where the size of your modifier counts. So now you have 4 new tools that you can use to create images of your own. And you can use these setups as they are, or you can use them as a starting point as we discussed through the video. How cool is that? I hope you learned a lot. I hope this was really useful. Let me know if you have any other ideas. Please leave them down below. Consider subscribing to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.